Lower Decks is a show that heavily relies on its use of callbacks, references, and Easter eggs of previous Star Trek series and movies, but today's episode is the first one that, for me, felt like it was actually an episode that was full of Lower Decks callbacks. It has been a while, it's been 4 seasons in the making, and we finally have enough content and enough original Lower Decks characters that have shown up once or twice in the series, to the point where we can make a complete callback episode just referencing all of the quirky, sentient artificial life forms that have appeared in the series. This includes Peanut Hamper, the really dramatic, crazy, and two-faced exocomp. We also have Agimus, the crazy, world-controlling supercomputer that is voiced by the amazing and ever so awesome Jeffrey Combs. I am very, very upset by the way people have made it painfully obvious to me that even though I really liked last week's Ferenginar episode with Ram and Lita, I enjoyed so many facets of that episode, it was an incredibly obvious missed opportunity for them not to have Jeffrey Combs voice a couple voice lines to make a Brunt appearance possible. Going to Ferenginar, you're exploring so many different aspects of the Ferengi culture, their architecture, advertising, their businesses, but you're not going to reference the FCA and Brunt. It makes no sense, and it made me even more upset when we saw how many voice lines and how much screen time Agimus got today. I think there's got to be something really annoying and contractual about that in production. They probably would have had to pay Jeffrey Combs this ludicrous check in exchange for just a couple voice lines because it's a completely different other character, which is very sad. In a future Blu-ray release of Lower Decks, they should make an edit and include Jeffrey Combs as Brunt in that episode. Big missed opportunity. And of course, I saved the best and most important for last with Badgey returning in today's episode, the crazy badge Starfleet instructional AI that was created by Rutherford. He is as menacing and as psycho as ever, and I am all here for it. I loved Badgey's performance. Titled after him, the episode is called A Few Badgeys More. Already starting off really strong for me because it has finally brought back one of my favorite Star Trek species into Star Trek. We see the Bynars being the ship of choice for the mystery ship to go and shoot its beam at and plunder, and it's very cool to see that my prediction from my last review was correct, and at the end of the episode, Agimus actually did give information to Boimler, and it confirms that the mystery ship is not destroying the ships at the end and the beginning of the Lower Decks episode, but it is actually just kind of beaming them and transporting them and stealing the ship and its crew and leaving behind debris to kind of make it look like they've been destroyed and killed. I love the Bynars so much. I think they are such a slept-on Star Trek species. It is crazy to me that they have not been brought back in some kind of important fashion. If I were to make my dream Star Trek series, the main bridge crew or the main senior staff, among them definitely would be a Bynar. It's so cool to me, their appearance, their culture, the episode that they came from, the one with the numbers, I'm not going to say it, it's literally just binary, there's no episode title. When the Bynars, like absolute thugs, just take what they want and steal the Enterprise, go and restart the big giant supercomputer on their home planet. Pretty sure they're the first alien to ever appear in Star Trek to have a purple or pinkish tone to their skin as well. There's so many cool things about the Bynars that are unique, and seeing them at the beginning of the episode made me fangirl, to say the least. Bring back the Bynars. Bring back the Bynars. That we get to see what a Bynar starship looks like for the first time ever in the canon, and I'm very happy to see that they look like those transport car security vehicles from Cloud City in Star Wars. They're in the Kala system, and this is the system where the two species popularly reside. This is where Pakled Planet is, and this is also where the Cerritos often runs into the Drukmani race, which are a bunch of salvage pirates, essentially. I loved everything about the Badgey plot. It's good seeing Badgey again. Everything about this episode was so funny, by the way. I think that this is a top 3 episodes to be in the comedy department for Lower Decks. Every single second, I was genuinely grinning from ear to ear because it was just really, really funny. When they first saw Badgey over the view screen when he was approaching the Cerritos and they animated his face to be really high def and very scary and menacing, I thought that that was just the funniest shit ever. They did it a couple more times throughout the episode, and every time they did it. It just put a smile on my face. Also enjoyed the running gag that just because Agimus was able to change his red color to blue, that suddenly made him a good robot, and that made all of his arguments and everything that he said to Boimler just that more convincing. The little romance story that they had between Peanut Hamper and Agimus was very cute. I think that Peanut Hamper fans are going to be very disappointed with today's episode, outside of the fact that Peanut Hamper just kind of ran off and didn't do anything with Agimus, and that is a little bit of a cop-out. We got to see her later on the Tyrus 2-1A research station, which is a beautifully replicated set. They animated it very well. It's the exact same research station from TNG's The Quality of Life, where the exocomps were first introduced, and I'm starting to think that Peanut Hamper's dad, Kevin, could very well be the same exocomp that we saw in that episode, which is very cool to think about. While I'm a little bit disappointed with Peanut Hamper, I like the amount that we saw from Agimus, and I especially liked the Badgey plotline. It definitely didn't disappoint. I thought it was so funny that Badgey was splitting apart into these other different Badgeys because of his own catharsis. Like, Logicy was great, and then there was also just Goodgy. When Goodgy asked Mariner and Rutherford if they wanted root beer floats, and Mariner was like, of course, man, we want root beer floats, but now's not a good time to do that. I thought that was just hilarious, how down they were for root beer floats. Another good joke in a long line of good jokes for a very funny episode. The creation of Logicy, by the way, was definitely a reference to Captain Kirk in the original series. The fact that he was able to defeat multiple supercomputers and sentient artificial beings using logos and appealing to their logic. Nomad from The Changeling, for instance, and then also Landru, the supercomputer from Return of the Archons. Another couple things I didn't really enjoy about the episode. I know Agimus did kind of take over another planet while he was upset about Peanut Hamper and was just being carried around by Tendi and Boimler. But why did they have to send him back to prison? I know he escaped and didn't really, finish his original time, but it seemed like he was finally reformed and he was going to live happily ever after with Peanut Hamper. The only thing that made this okay, in my opinion, is the fact that they returned to the Daystrom Institute with Boimler, and then Agimus explained to his cellmate next to him about how he was going to reform, he was going to talk to a therapist, and then he was finally going to make his way all the way back to Peanut Hamper to be with his best friend. The happy ending I needed for Agimus. I will say that I am a little bit upset with the fact that they had this really cool and interesting Badgey episode, and then they decided to end it with Badgey just simply kind of ascending into an omniscient god. This is a joke that's been beaten to death now. The only thing that I thought was a little bit funny about it was when Badgey was going through the little portal to go to his alternate dimension, he made a little joke about how he would maybe go see the mountain. And then I'm pretty sure we saw the koala again up there in the portal as well. Ascension into God's thing doesn't need to be happening every 6 episodes. All in all, there isn't a lot to talk about because, again, this episode relied on Lower Decks lore. It did not rely on a whole ton of references and Easter eggs from previous Trek content. Kinda appreciate that. I'm very thirsty for live action Trek to return. I don't care in what format that I get it. I'm actually weirdly excited for Star Trek Discovery to return its final season. I'm a little bit dubious as to if that's actually going to be the case, if we're ever going to see any more Michael Burnham after this. And also, Star Trek Prodigy was saved, so if any of you Star Trek Prodigy fans are out there, it is now going to be finishing up its 2nd season on Netflix. I guess when you don't want to pay money to produce a show that you've started, you kind of just cart it and shop it off to some other streaming service. I guess that's kind of the wave that we're on these days. I give this episode a 7 out of 10 just on humor alone, but if it wasn't as funny as it was, I would give it a lower score because its plot was just not amazing. If you enjoyed the video, and if you're enjoying any of the content you see on the channel, I'd be very flattered if you were to subscribe. Once I hit 10K, I am going to be filming a funny video out in public where I dress up as a Star Trek alien. Please leave a comment down below. I love comments. They're my favorite thing about the platform. The more you leave, the happier I am. And with all that being said, hope you all have a good rest of your week. Live long and prosper.